Hi everybody, this is Vincent and welcome to the season 3 of Hanging Out Sunset. Yes, I know you're gonna have to keep up with that French accent, but yeah, that's part of the deal. I can't do anything about this. Well, the good news is this is the third year of this experiment. We started during the pandemic and I have to say it's been the most gratifying journey ever. Reaching out to local bands first to see how we could help them during that period of time where everything was shut down. And now this is evolving into something bigger. Of course, we still put the light on the LA local bands that we think deserves attention, but now we're also covering national and international acts. That's exciting. First, it was the podcast only, and now it's turning also into a magazine. So please check our Instagram and check hangingoutsunset.com because we have many articles and many are going to come in the weeks and months coming. I never knew I would love to do this so much in the first place. And you know what? What I love the most is sharing the stories of the artist in the making. This is not your typical bullshit interview. It's a real conversation. And I guess that's the difference. It's the human connection. Well, for the first episode of this third season, I wanted to talk to a local band to keep our tradition alive. And I wanted to talk with someone who I think he's one of the most talented songwriters and performers in LA. Oh my gosh, are you ready for the trip? I hope you have a lot of commuting because that guy, King Gizzard, the founder and leader of the local legends in the making Velvet Starlings, likes to talk. And so do I. We just rambled on for about 2 hours. And that's the beauty of podcasts. No one can tell us to shut up. Of course, you can always turn your device off and stop whenever you want. And that's the beauty of it as well. Well, the two of us geeked out a lot about bands like King Gizzard, the Beatles, the Stones, Nirvana, Bowie, the White Stripes, and so on. In this episode, we also talked a lot about the music industry, and I think that's why it's so interesting, especially if you're a musician. There's a lot of insight into what it's like to be an upcoming band. And it's been a good run for Velvet Starlings. You know, they're not just playing clubs around LA, they just came back from a UK tour. They also shared a stage this summer with Smashing Pumpkins and Weezer at the Beachlife Festival. And that's just the beginning because Christian is only 18. Can you believe that? I mean, I couldn't wrap my mind around it because he's a music encyclopedia. Really. I met Christian at Kenter's Deli on Fairfax a few years ago, pre-pandemic. You know, when we didn't live in an alternative reality. For those of you who don't know, Kenter's is a 24-hour deli near CBS. Perhaps that's why it was called Hollywood Cantina during the Golden Age. Joe DiMaggio and Marilyn Monroe used to date here. Also, Cantor is known for the Kibitz Room, the little bar on the side of the deli where Guns N' Roses used to play their first shows in the 80s. Another reason Cantor's matters so much to music and me is that Rodney Bingenheimer eats there almost every night. Who's Rodney? Rodney is very important because he started the careers of many bands in LA, like the Runaways and Blondie, playing them on K-Rock when the station didn't shy away from rock and roll back in the 70s. It seems now they can't even acknowledge it's a rock station because you have to say KROQ, not K-Rock anymore. Anyway, that's another story. A few years ago, I met Rodney at Cantor's and he started playing my band Yard of Blonde on his Sunday show on K-Rock and then on SiriusXM, where he hosts the same show until now, today, on Little's TV's Garage. The Velvet Starlings were also on Rodney's roster, so I guess that's why he invited us to his birthday. That was a memorable night since I met that night the ultimate legend Thurston Moore, Sonic Youth. Arrow from Starcrawler was there too, I remember. And Christian, of course. And our path crossed again earlier this year when Saint Electric invited us all to play the Peppermint in West Hollywood. It was Saint Electric, Slave to Humanity, that we had on this show before, Velvet Starlings and Yard of Blondes. Well, Velvet Starlings already had my heart from the Rodney days, but seeing them live blew me away. There's this incredible energy and passion for UK garage that transcends nostalgia. Even though their music is heavily referenced, they're fresh. It sounds fresh. It's exciting. Christian was great to talk to, and I'm looking forward to discovering not one, but 2 upcoming records. They're that prolific. I wish I was that productive. I just took a whole year to figure out what Yard of Blondes' new direction will be. There are about like 3 or 4 songs that I like now. I mean, it's something. And here comes this kid and just throws you dozens of songs. And it's fucking good. Maybe it's time for me to retire? No fucking way. Anyhow, I'm getting carried away because this conversation is already super long and I feel like I'm teasing you now. Well, welcome to the 3rd season of Hanging Out Sunset. Let's do the show. Hi everybody and welcome on Hanging Out Sunset. I'm Vincent Jacob. You know me if you're following us. And today I have the immense pleasure to start season number 3.
Oh?
Yes. With an impressive singer and band leader from LA. Christian Gisborne is the founder of the Velvet Starlings.
Mm-hmm.
And they are like a 60s infused garage rock and roll band. Well, that's what I read on your website.
That sounds... that's on our website. Oh.
So, Christian, welcome to our secret location.
Mm-hmm.
As you can see, it's not on Sunset.
It's pretty secret.
But we can't reveal it. And today we are debuting something we never did, which is recording outside.
Oh.
So we'll see how it goes sound-wise. But hopefully we'll be fine.
I'm not listening in headphones, but it sounds good to me so far.
So, Christian, how are you first?
Oh, I'm doing good. Right now, like when you go to sleep and then you wake up and you have that big rush of energy that you just get when the sun's in your eyes and you're ready to go do life from being unconscious. I have it all running through me, and I'm ready for today.
Plus, you have the adrenaline from last night, I guess, because you just played a show at the Markham Lounge.
Exactly.
How
last
was it?
night, it was a fun show. It was really cool. We played with 3 really cool bands. A band called Wayward, a band called Swan Dive, and Not From England. They headlined, and it's their last show for a while because 2 of the guys one's moving to go to school in New York, and one's going to school in England. Wow. Ironically.
That's cool. They're not from England, but they're going to England. Mm-hmm. A bit just like your band, Velvet Starling, is really influenced by UK sounds, right?
That's true.
And
on our website, it says 60s influenced. I do want to start to try to get away from it, because I think what happens is, like today, there's the psychedelic garage rock, so that's the kind of overtaken music over the last 10 years, and really, it's not even like... I think that's just a word people use, but most of the kings of that genre, like, I don't know what they'd call themselves other than rock music, because it's drums and bass and guitars and songs and traditional song structure. But beyond those things, nothing's kept at a constant. So I think we just need there's got to be a new word for whatever the rock is that is right now. Mm-hmm. I don't know what to call it.
Maybe I will craft it on Hanging On Sunset, because it usually comes from the journalists, right?
Yeah,
they invented
that's true.
the word grunge.
It's true.
I think it was not a nice way to describe the music in the first place. Was the same for punk music, I guess.
Yeah.
I just watched the documentary, not the documentary, the biopic about the Sex Pistols. Did you watch that?
I saw a video from it on YouTube. I haven't seen the whole thing yet.
It's actually mind-blowing. I wasn't expecting much from it, because I was like, a biopic.
I know, isn't it with Disney or someone like that? put
Yeah,
it
but it's
together?
Danny Boyle doing
okay.
it.
Okay.
So I think he brought some of the most vicious aspects of the band into the light, and it's pretty cool. It's still a boys band that Malcolm McLaren created, but they were something. Actually, Malcolm McLaren didn't care much about the music. He was casting characters. And I think he did a great job. But you haven't seen it, so go watch it.
Oh, I will.
I don't know if you remember, but the first time I met you, it was at the Cantors. Do you remember that?
Cantor's Deli?
Yeah.
Oh my god! Was it at Rodney's thing?
Yes.
Oh
yes.
my
It was
God.
Rodney Bingenheimer, the legendary radio host DJ that was on K-Rock and now is on Sirius XM.
Which birthday was that?
It was before the pandemic.
Was it the one that where Thurston Moore was there?
Yes.
Yes.
Exactly.
Oh my god.
I think there was Clem Burke too.
Yeah. Clem was there, and Frank from Blondie,
And the guy from the Standals.
Tony Valentino.
Tony Valentino, thank you.
And who else was there? And Arrow from Starcrawler was there.
Exactly. And there was Mark London.
Yeah,
who's,
Mark London.
An
Yeah.
amazing designer, and I guess he's like assistant to Brian Wilson from the Beach Boys.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, there's so many people who were there.
So that was the first time I saw you, and I was already intrigued by you because you dressed just like your music sounds.
Yeah.
So I was like, that must be a rock and roll musician, and I'm glad then we got to meet again because Saint Electric invited us earlier this year to play.
Oh yeah,
together.
I just saw London.
Oh, nice.
Like 3 days ago, Echo Park Rising. We were watching a band called Plague Vendor, who were really sick.
Oh, I love
And,
Plague Vendor.
Yeah, and you know what you're in for when you go to one of those shows. It's badass. But he was there walking around. He goes to a lot of shit. Actually, the first time I saw him and the rest of the guys from Saint Electric in a non-show environment was also in San Clemente watching Plague Vendor.
Oh.
They're actually big fans of Plague Vendor.
So they're the thread here.
Yeah.
Plague Vendor, I've never seen them live, but I love their music. And they're from California, right?
Yeah, they're from like right here.
They're fucking amazing. Oh, that's cool. So I saw you there, and then we played together a show, and that was cool. Quite of an empty venue, though.
Yeah, well, that's the Peppermint Club. I'm realizing, you have to, learn the etiquette of which venues are cool, which venues are.
Don't get me wrong, it's a beautiful place.
Well, that's one step further than that. No offense to all the venues that are cool that I like, but they could learn something from that venue.
There's a good mood, a good atmosphere.
Yeah,
in
but
that
all
place.
the other things that go with that particular venue that we won't name, you know.
But it didn't help that most of the bands were minors that night.
Well, yeah,
Except
but
for
all
us, the
minors
dinosaurs.
playing at a 21 plus venue. I don't know.
There was you guys, Saint Electric, and Slaves to Humanity
yeah.
that we had on this podcast before. And Yard of Blondes, the old dinosaurs from the scene. But that was cool to check you live for the first time. And me and Fanny, my wife, and the bass player in Yard of Blondes, we actually fell in love with your music, guys.
Oh, well, that means a lot, dude.
No, that was really, really mind-blowing. Like the stage performance, the attitude, the musicianship, like everything is cool. All the, the references, where you come from, and we're gonna dive into this later.
Yeah.
But that was great. And then I ran into you at the Emil and the
Oh
Sniffers
yeah!
show.
Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh! I forgot about that.
That was a sick shot, the Terragram.
Oh man! Yeah, there we go. The non-show environment, someone else's show.
Exactly.
Oh man!
Did you enjoy that show?
Oh, that show was sick. That was my first time ever seeing Emil and the Sniffers. I've had so many chances where they're playing at this festival or that festival, and then I just end up not going. But I remember hearing about them in 2019 when they were opening the King Gizzard shows, and they're like, "Oh, it's the opener," and now they're like on Seth Meyers late night and
crazy, right?
Big. I saw Tones and that girl who had that huge top 40 hit. She covered one of Emil and the Sniffer songs
really?
at some Australian award show.
That must be interesting.
Yeah, it's always cool. I saw yesterday that Harry Styles covered Wet Legs big
Oh,
songs.
yeah,
Like
I saw
like
that.
when someone extremely popular is covering something from the, I'll put in quotation marks, the underground.
Yeah.
It's not that they're that underground, but
Yeah.
you know.
That's funny that it's like almost that they're trying to reclaim some credibility doing that.
Yeah, I
right?
remember Amy Taylor from Home Sniffer. She put out a thing about Miley Cyrus ripping off her look, like her hairstyle, and because I remember thinking like, what, because she wears like the white tank top. I was like, oh, Miley Cyrus was doing that on the Wrecking Ball in 2014, but then she should have posted a photo of her haircut, and I was like, oh, okay.
I think Miley Cyrus, she would love to be in underground.
Yeah, well, yeah.
But
That's the thing is, once you've been Hannah Montana, it's kind of hard to go back.
Yeah, it's hard. And I think she's dating the drummer of Lily.
Lily, yeah,
right?
I saw that.
I think I ran into her at
Max.
a show. Yes,
Yeah.
he's an amazing drummer.
Yeah, I saw them open for Skating Polly, opening for Starcrawler at the Fonda.
Oh, nice.
In 2019. And I
Oh,
remember
that's
thinking,
fucking
like,
cool.
that was the one of the takeaways from watching Lily, because I'd never listened to them. But the drummer, his beats.
I mean,
what was
the whole
song?
band is amazing.
Yeah, the whole band. Their new record's really good.
Oh, it's amazing. I got to see them like 2 or 3 times this year.
Oh,
I
wow.
went to Anaheim because I really love it. And
Mhm.
again, the stage presence of the singer.
Yeah,
is,
Dylan, he's sick.
Yeah, is like a hooligan guy
He
on
puts
stage.
it all into it.
Yeah, an English vibe again.
Yeah.
So let's start talking about you, because I think you started getting into music at a very early age, and actually it came through Legos.
Well, yeah, actually, when I think about music for me, you hear music, I like the Power Rangers theme song in the Power Rangers, it's badass, it's pretty metal, and I'm like 3 years old, and so you have like a concept of what music is, and that music can be like cool, it's not just like nursery rhymes. And then after that, I remember seeing on Nickelodeon or somewhere the White Stripes Fell in Love with a Girl music video, and
that was it.
It kind of put things into a whole other perspective. I just like that song, and really, I still, to this day, as much as everyone could just say, oh, it's just another rock song, it's just garage rock, there's a million people who've done that, the vocal takes that Jack White lays down on that song, they don't really sound like people say, oh, it's just a ripoff of Robert Plant, and it's like, that sounds like Robert Plant to you?
No.
What Led Zeppelin songs are you listening to?
I mean, Jack White is such a major artist right now. It's easy to bash him, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when you look at the discography of everything he has done, from the White Stripes to the Raconteurs, or everything he does solo, it's pretty mind-blowing. And he's always trying to, go back to the techniques of the past,
Mm-hmm.
like engineering the records like analog style.
Oh, yeah.
It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, what I always make fun of him about is the other side of it is like, because people are always trying to say, oh, he has a song with Beyonce, he has a song with Jay-Z, and this and that. He'll talk about like, I think that's cool. I like his song he has with Beyonce is sick, but when he listens, like his favorite song ever is what is it? Grinning in Your Face by Son House.
Oh,
And
really?
he listens to all that like 1930s blues music, and for me, most of the music I identify with that I listen to Jack White, my favorite stuff is like Back to Fell in Love with a Girl. That song, I'd make the argument that like it's really original.
Mhm.
His I don't know if I want to say the word accent, because it's not necessarily an accent, but the way he sings that song, I can't really point to another person and say, oh, he sounds like that.
Yeah, as much as they're referenced in their music, of course, they're also very idiosyncratic in the
Yeah,
way that
exactly. There's a lot of
it's
things
really him.
it's only him. Like,
and even when he plays the drums, there's something about it
Yeah.
that's different. Right?
He comes at it from a whole different perspective, and even that's what he talks about with Meg White. She comes at drumming from like a whole other perspective than other people. Because the people always say, like, it's a back and forth thing where they go, oh, well, Meg White, she has a minimalist approach and she's putting all this stuff, and then the other people go, dude, come on, why are you making it sound like it's cooler than it is? And then the next person comes in and says, well, I would agree with you that people are making it sound more complicated than it actually is, but from another point, like, she's really on time, and she does everything intentionally.
Works.
Yeah.
Who fucking cares if she's not John Bonham, you
There's
know?
a couple of things in the songs where it's like she could be doing more things, and she physically can, and we've seen that she can even earlier in her career, but she doesn't. And she, like, there's a song called Hello Operator where they're playing the song, you know, the verse is rocking, and then it stops, and she does this drum solo with like a stick, and it's one stick, and she just taps on the side. It's like it's like Morse code, and it's a whole like 25 seconds of or maybe 20 seconds, but everyone knows it, and when he plays it live, everyone like taps along, and there's all these little things, and that's what makes the music. That if you listen to, like, people always talk about how, like, the White Stripes, it always sounds like it's falling apart live. And that's like the opposite of the Foo Fighters. The Foo Fighters are always going to put on the best show and be perfect, and they're going to play the freaking same set list, and then they'll do some cover that sounds identical to the original. And that's, like, to me, the opposite on the spectrum of what the White Stripes are. And the White Stripes are the reason I want to make music.
Yeah, we need a sense of chaos, right? It's rock and roll. I mean, I love the Foo Fighters, but it's different.
Well, yeah, exactly, and that's the thing. I like so much, even just like pop music and stuff where it is perfect and it's meant to be perfect, but sometimes it's not. And
I think the White Stripes and Jack White in all of his career, what he has and lots of bands don't have is a vision. And style is very important too, and the visuals, and that video that we were mentioning that you saw when you were 4, fell in love with a girl. It's and I think it was Michel Gondry who directed it. I'm not sure about that. French director who's amazing, always trying to be creative with the, you know, no VFX, all, you know, man's craft, and that's pretty mind-blowing. And I think that you actually made your own Lego video later. She said, right?
Yes, it's true.
And actually, it's a really, really cool video. I engage everyone listening to this to check it too. So it was kind of an homage, I guess, to the White Stripes video, but you did it really well too. And I don't think you had a great budget for that. But
no, nobody. There is not one person involved in the music video except me. I went into my room, got what Lego I had. I used Lego green base plates as the green screen, and I used like for the parts where I'm in and it looks like a video, like they're singing. I used an app. So, yeah. But the rest of it is real Lego.
That's what I like when bands are starting to be creative. Even if you don't have the budget, it doesn't mean you're not gonna do great things. You know, actually, sometimes it's even better because you have to make your brain work.
Yeah, I was watching a thing yesterday because I'm trying to go get tickets to see Mac DeMarco and a ton of other bands this weekend, and it was about Mac, and he was saying that his sound, like the indie sound of what the modern day 2012 version of indie as a sound is, it's like the brick wall that you hit when you don't have enough money to push it over, and whatever that thing is, that boundary line of this is the best sound that I can possibly get with the gear that I have, that's what he wants to make. And I feel like that's what the White Stripes are, that's what all these great bands are, because there's so many bands I know. Like, I always talk about like Pink Floyd, and like Pink Floyd are amazing, they're one of the greatest bands of all time, but it's not just them, but so many bands, when you have all the money in the world and all the gear in the world and the weirdest sounds and everything at your fingertips, you kind of don't know what to choose, and you're not forced to write great songs with an acoustic guitar and a melody. You just kind of keep experimenting with sounds. And I try and, like, I have the Nord Electro 5D, and then I have my guitar, and then like distortion pedals, and beyond that I feel like I could get a lot of cool stuff, but it would almost take away from the real reason that I listen to music. Is I like people with a big collection of songs that I want to put on in the car, like listening to songs in the car or listening to songs on a walk or in a movie scene. That's the reason I like music. That's where I spend most of my time with music and developing a relationship with music, is listening to someone's songs. And that's why my favorite bands are like the Beatles and stuff like that, because they have the biggest collection of the most different sounding songs from each other.
That's right.
So that, for me, that's the goal for Velvet Starlings, to develop a huge collection of
A catalog.
stories. Yeah, exactly.
And you've been releasing quite a lot of songs already. I mean, you're still very young. You're 18, 19?
19, yeah.
19, and I think Velvet Starling, you started the whole project when you were like 11, 12?
12 years old,
Yeah.
yes.
And how did that happen? Because we stopped when you were 4. You watched that White Stripes video. You're in love with Lego. That puts you in the world of garage music, I guess, or music in itself. And then what happens? I think your dad was a singer in a band in the 90s, a Britpop band. He's English, right?
Yes.
He's from England.
Yes.
And that's why maybe you have an English accent on your record.
Yeah. Well, what it is so when I was 6 years old, I got super into the Beatles, like too into the Beatles. Like I went 2 years where I refused to listen. I didn't even know a song by the Rolling Stones. Like I was just like,
Oh, it was same for me.
Who are they?
Same
Screw
for
them.
me.
I had that like
Mentality.
Yeah, it was weird. But
I mean, when you grow up and you start getting into music, one of the first cliches, you have to be a Beatles fan or a Rolling Stone fan. Like if there's a war between them, and we all know that there wasn't a war at all. And
Yeah,
that the
yeah.
Beatles actually wrote the first song that the Rolling Stones recorded.
I'm glad you said that. I've had we have one of our songs, our song Technicolor Shakedown, where you say, I want to know if you're Beatles or Stones. And like I've had this conversation with people, and some people, seriously, I don't know how, but 50% of the people I talk to and ask, they say Stones. And it blows my mind. I'm glad you said, obviously, we all know, like, duh. But, you know, some people, with the Stones, it's like a...
I'm starting to get into the Rolling Stones right now.
I love the Rolling Stones.
You know,
like I mean...
more
yeah,
and more.
yeah.
Like, I used to love them, not as much as the Beatles, because I can relate to your story, because when I was about 6, 7, I remember on a trip to Spain from vacation, my cousin, she handed me her Discman or Walkman. It was like cassettes, I guess, back in the days. And I heard the Beatles for the first time. And I think it was Love Me Do. And that was a shock for me, like the power of the melody.
Yeah.
Like giving me emotions for the first time. I think I had a few emotions before with the music. It was probably Madonna, La Isla Bonita, first sexual emotion, I guess. Even though I didn't know it. But the Beatles were really the first thing that triggered something into me and made me want to dig more into that universe. And that's what I get the first time I thought, maybe I can do that too, you know?
So it was Love Me Do. That's a cool... My first track that, like I heard the Beatles, I knew Rain, and then my dad had She Said on a ringtone and on his phone. And I was just like, oh yeah, it's music, like, you know, here. But I heard I'm the Walrus. And I remember thinking, because I was like...
Quite a trip.
I was 5 years old. And yet that's the thing, is like, it's like hearing another language. Like the words he says, and he's just like, elementary penguin, pornographic priestess, this, and I'm like, you feel just like I wanted to go and Google on my computer, what are all these words, like I've been on the earth for 6 years and I haven't heard any of these words, and you're telling me this is English. So
and cuckoo cuckoo.
Yeah, exactly. and the production of the song too, because he's singing through Drive, but then there's just a orchestra of like weird,
it's crazy.
Like it's almost like funny, like the
I can see
the riffs where they happen. Like
it.
there's a riff where it's like with the cello, and then another one plays a fifth, and then one plays the third, and it's like it feels like it was made as like a comedy routine. It's really like out there. And then you watch the videos that accompany it, where they're like dressed as animals and they're doing these weird dances and they're in fields, and then you have the policemen on top of the big tomb and the egg, and it changed my concept of like what music could be. And then after that, you hear their other song, you hear freaking Tomorrow Never Knows and stuff like that. Like, I still think, because people always talk about Buddy Holly and Elvis and all these people who changed music and when jazz changed music. And for me, I still think, like, how did you have freaking Hound Dog and go in just a couple of years to Tomorrow Never Knows?
Yeah,
like, to me, that song, no one talks about that song enough. Like, that, the sounds on that song today rival weird sounds that I've heard.
It's trippy.
It's like they reverse the horns and the guitars and tamboras, drones, and all this stuff that's just like, you can't put words to it. You can't really put it into a genre.
You were talking about Pink Floyd and saying, when you have all the money in the world, you start experimenting and you can get lost, I guess.
Well, that's the difference between a band like Pink Floyd and a band like the Beatles. And that's the thing that also comes down to it, is like the songwriting with Paul McCartney, George Harrison, John Lennon. They're, I think, some of the greatest songwriters of all time, and just that if you pick up a Beatles chord book and sit there and you know the songs and you're just singing it with your acoustic guitar, you go, oh my, there's so much like harmonic information across their song. They're not songs with 4 chords and coming up with, verses that they just repeat over those 4 chords. There's like 30 chords in some of their songs.
It's so much research and experimenting, and still sounds easy for a non-musician. Like everybody can dive into a music song.
Another thing is, a lot of people, like an idea a parallel I've drawn to rap music, in that with sampling and stuff like that. You find those things where, like, my dad showed me a thing of Come Together that I think is Muddy Waters has a song where he says like 10 of the lyrics in Come Together, and it's the same tempo, the same chords, the same everything, and it's like, oh well, that's the inspiration for the song. And the Beatles, they borrowed a lot of fully realized ideas from other cultures and other places and musicians in the underground who would have never been added to, like, when Tool plays all of their weird Indian sounding scales and stuff like that, and they have songs where they're using tamboras and weird tablas and drums and stuff like that. I don't know that it would have been thought of the same, the way that the mainstream took to Tool of rock, if not for George Harrison doing it, because I can't really point to another place where people in the mainstream were using that and it made any sense or did anything.
Bringing Ravi Shankar, sitar to the table.
But anyway, what I was saying with rap music, like Kanye West, he'll go and he'll take a fully finished song by someone with all the drums and all, and that's their big song, and they put all this effort and time and weird sounds into it, and then just take the whole thing and put it on his song and rap over it, and it's not just like borrowing a melody, or it's like you're taking like what would have been 80 tracks and all of that information, all of that time and effort and good karma built up with it, all gets attached to the song. And the Beatles kind of did that and I'm not saying I don't condone it. I think it furthered music and made music a lot better than it would have been.
I mean, music is inspiration. There's no music if you haven't heard music before, and you constantly borrowing stuff that you like, or you learned, or you heard. Maybe it's in your subconscious, and sometimes you come up with a great melody and you're like, yeah, and then you realize, oh my gosh, it's from another song that I love. So I'm all for sampling. And,
exactly. That's what that was my point, is that the Beatles, it's not just like with Led Zeppelin, it's kind of the opposite of that. They would just take the actual melodies of a song or the chords of a song and do their version of it. Whereas with the Beatles, it's kind of like completely the opposite. They'd make their own original song.
It's material for a new creation.
Yeah. They'd take their own song that they've written and then take all of the aesthetic parts that aren't copyrightable and put that and wear the cloak of another genre or another thing, which... all the respect for that. What Led Zeppelin did, it's kind of the complete opposite, and that's what you gotta have less respect for. If there's a song where they take the lyrics and the melodies and the all of those things. But obviously, Led Zeppelin,
got trouble in courts.
Yeah, exactly. The Beatles didn't get in trouble in court because they weren't stealing someone else's work. Like if it's like with reggae, you know, if you think of reggae, you think of those organs and playing on the emphasis on the 2 and the 4 and, you know, steel drums. So if the Beatles were to take all of those things and then make their own original Beatles sounding song, then it sounds like something that's never happened before.
Obladi Oblada. Probably a good example.
Like,
of
there's this band out right now. They're called the Babe Rainbow, and they're really cool. They're on King Gizzard's label.
Oh, right.
But they're gonna play at Desert Days, and
Oh,
they're
nice.
pretty big. But they have they have a song called Secret Enchanted Broccoli Forest with sitars on it, and they're kind of like a 60s throwback, you know, chill rock band from Australia. But they have like this thing where they have a song called Monkey Disco, and it's like the, you know, like the disco beat, but it's all with like 60s production. And I thought about it, I was like, you could look at that like, oh, it's retro, it's throwback, it's already been done before. But when you think about it, no one was going in the 60s. So there hasn't really been anyone to use 60s production and then play a genre of music that existed after the 60s. So it really is a completely brand new idea. And you can't really pinpoint anyone in music who's done that.
Actually, that's leading to a question I was going to ask you about you incorporating so much 60s influence, and even you stated yourself on your website and your bios. Aren't you afraid that you're cornering yourself?
Oh, exactly. That's going off the I'm glad you brought this to my attention. It's going off the website as soon as possible. Because I think with the 60s, it's not that I want to sound like... I don't want to sound at all like anything that already
You don't want to be a
happened.
tribute band.
Well, exactly.
And you're not.
Because so many bands right now are cover bands with original songs. It's crazy. And that's the opposite of what I would ever want to be. But in the 60s, that was the time when music sounded like music forever, and then one day people just got obsessed with being progressive, and not like prog rock like King Crimson or whatever. I don't mean it like that. I mean progressive in just the sense of, like, there's progressive pop, like Lady Gaga is progressive pop, in the idea that it's moving music forward. It's...
I mean...
You
can't do anything about that. I mean, it's every generation, they want their own music, and they're gonna mix new influences, you know. And it's quite interesting because it's really hard to guess what's gonna come next every time.
I've been making a point to, not that I have anything against. I mean, all my favorite bands when I started out were from the 60s, but to not just listen to a lot more new artists, but almost exclusively listen to music from the last 20 and 10 years. At least over the last year I've been doing that, or last 2 years. Because it's the only music that hasn't influenced anybody. No one's been influenced by the album that came out last month.
Yeah,
no one's had the time to write songs in response to it and record it with their production ideas in mind and then put it out. So... if you want something fresh and new, that's still rock music, because that's the other thing. It's like there's ideals, and then there's like literally the actual sound. Like, I think rock, like, because the problem is all the people who say rock is dead and I wish rock would come back. There's a difference between people who want to usher in a new era of rock music, like when grunge happened. That was whoever was new and wanted to be a part of the next thing. And then people who, like, listened to a collection of bands when they were in high school and they were on the team and had their girlfriend and they lived the time of their life when they were 19, and they just want to get back to that. And that's, I think, the real problem with not just music but movies, everything, is people they haven't had that experience yet, and normally that's kids who haven't, done that, and that's why they're looking for that music, and the music that you're 16 to 26 is like the music you listen to forever. But there's those people, and it's most of the people who are into rock, they're into the rock of the 90s, or they're into the rock of the 80s, and that's
which makes sense.
Yeah, and you can't blame them.
Because it's always a generation cycle. You go back to a generation that is not yours, and that is not the one just before you, and you think those are your heroes. When I was a kid in the 90s, I was all of when Kurt Cobain happened in Nirvana. I was like, oh, that's my thing. That's new. That's and then from Nirvana I discovered their influences, and I went back to the 60s and 70s, right?
Yeah.
So that's what happened with every generation. Somebody suddenly talks to you. Oh, he's talking about me. Kurt Cobain is like you wouldn't like that, but he was the voice of a generation.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
You wouldn't
that's
like
what
that.
happened because he embodied so many things that were happening at the moment, and I guess that music is always evolving that way. And right now, I've seen a lot of kids get into rock music again because the rap thing is too mainstream. So how can you rebel about?
Well, I think that what's scary is that there's so many. It used to be in the 90s, everyone liked 10 bands that MTV was like, these are, the MTV says Nirvana. So you go to school, and if you like King Crimson, people are like, what are you talking about that for? Freaking Nirvana. And then eventually, you either, sit in your room and listen to what you like, or you go and you listen to Nirvana, and you're like, yeah, dude, I freaking like Nirvana. You like Nirvana, and everyone's friends, and everyone has a shared experience, and there's a community, and people go to the show, and they learn other things about each other through that. But today, that's been taken away with the internet, because now if you go to school and say, oh, I like King Crimson, and everyone's like, what? You go home and you find a niche Reddit community of people who like them, and you find a kid who's your age who likes them in Poland or in some other country. And that's a good thing, because the media doesn't control us. But at the same time, you have to be careful, because the communities aren't of people who go to shows together and live in the same place. They're split, and people are less likely to listen to other people's opinions. And like, if I only liked grunge music, and I was like, oh yeah, psychedelic rock, that's lame, and I was just in that world, and I was never forced to have to be exposed to other music, I might go my whole life never listening to the Beatles. And that's a scary thing, because basically people's opinions are now just being justified by other people that they can find on the internet that they wouldn't have found in the 90s.
Yeah, you're pointing a very serious problem in the world.
No more communities, no more shared experiences.
What you said about music is true about politics and a lot of things.
Even movies,
Yeah.
It's like the only movies that people can agree on are Marvel movies, Star Wars, and stuff like that. And so they put all the money into it, and you're never going to see like Quentin Tarantino movies by the next Quentin Tarantino come out, because the only thing that's going to have success is the stuff that's already backed.
I think for us musicians and fans and passionate about art in general, we can't really think about the mainstream, because you could never foreshadow what's going to happen. Even the media, they can't control what's going to be the next, and it's going to last for 2 years, and then they're going to move on to a different thing. So if you're really passionate about your art, you're going to have to go to what you like and dig it, and find the people that are like-minded like you. So I think coming back to the thing you were just saying about the communities and like being exposed to a diversity of music, of art, of politics, and everything, it's very important. But also, it's very important to stick to your own, appetite for things and dig into this. And I think that's a beautiful thing that the internet brought. It brought many wrong things, but also the ability to, by your age, with access to millions of songs, just with your computer.
Well, what it does is it puts the job on the individual now.
Yes.
It's which is scary, because no offense to all people, including me, but people are lazy. I'd rather have some curator like Matt Pinfield telling me, this is the freaking band you should be listening to. This is the cream of the crop. This is the next thing in the underground. We are sending agents to the shows, and we're finding out who is the best, who has the best songs, and this is who we want to sign. And the dude at the record store who works there going, yeah, man, we just got in the new Radiohead, and this is what you should be checking out, kid. That's what we needed, and we've lost that. We don't have, and there are places to go to, but there's so much less of it. and it just means that, you know, we have to, like I said, but it's on the individual now.
Yeah.
So I hope that more people can get other people to start thinking like that.
Can you believe that nowadays in the music industry there are no more A&Rs?
Yeah, that's like
It's
crazy.
just data driven.
Ooh, yeah, exactly. The A&R is, oh, this was trending on TikTok. Well, I guess there's a market for it. We know that the math says it, so sign that.
And it's very lazy, and it's very, you know, dangerous, I guess, for culture in general.
Well, exactly.
Like you said, we need curators.
I always talk about, like, in the Renaissance times, you had, like, the Medici families and all those. They'd invest in art and culture, and they were patrons of it. And because of that, art flourished. They put a lot of, like, that's why anime is so big. They, after, you know, I think it was like 70 years ago, Japan said, we want to put all our money into culture. And now, look at everyone I know, friggin' my age, loves anime. And that's an awesome thing, because they put, you know, they made waves
They invest.
in the culture. Exactly. America was investing in culture in, like think about Hollywood in the 50s.
Yeah.
And it was a thing. And or in England, think about the Beatles. How much, once they realized, oh, dude, boy band, 4 dudes playing guitar and singing about love, that's the thing.
Yeah.
Like, they were like, okay, we gotta find everyone who's doing it. And they're like, okay, The Who, we're signing you. Stones, we're signing you. And we're gonna make it a thing. And then
it's always like that. They find something that works, and then they try to replicate with other bands. Sometimes for the worst, sometimes for the better.
exactly. And that's the thing, is that the dream is that you find people who are influenced by that art. Like think about the Doors. We're here in the secret location.
In Venice, we can say.
They were just influenced by what was happening, and that's how it should be. Is people with money should invest in people who are making art for the sake of art, and then.
But also, people with money, they want to make more money. I mean,
yeah.
that's obvious. So
Yeah.
that's why it's a tricky and delicate balance.
Oh, and that's what I was gonna bring up when you were talking earlier about it. What was I gonna say? With the media right now, as much as the media sucks, you kind of want some outlet that is, you know, telling you, someone that you can trust, talking about, like,
Did you see Creamy's back?
who's back?
Cream, the magazine.
Oh!
So that. Sorry, I'm jumping on what you're
no,
saying.
I was like, my mind was exploding. I was forgetting what I was
So
saying.
there was no more rock and roll media that was trying to say, we love that music. For the rest of you who don't, fuck you.
Yeah.
Rock and roll needs that, right?
Mhm.
Because we all see like alternative press, all the. It's kind of like.
Oh yeah, there's that's the other thing is there's, like, I remember Pitchfork. I saw a thing where they put out, like, Pitchfork, who I think of, like, they're the ones that review freaking Ty Segall and, you know, all the Ariel Pink, like the underground. And someone on Pitchfork said that WAP was the best song of the year by Cardi B, and I was like, wait, did they just get any who is in charge? Where's the like quality control?
Yeah.
How can you keep those two thoughts in your mind at the same time? And
It's probably a hype thing. Like
Yeah.
I'm gonna sound very edgy if I say Cardi B was the best song.
But it's like sounding edgy. The new thing is like being extremely unedgy is edgy.
Yeah.
Like there's these people who love Black Flag and they go to all these hardcore shows and they're like, dude, I know every song Taylor Swift's ever released. And that's the new edgy. Being not like it used to be that like with Marvel movies, if you were in the 80s and you like comic book stuff, you're a nerd. And then somewhere in the 2000s when that show The Big Bang Theory came out and this and that, it was like, oh, it's cool, and it became cool. And then now it's become like retroactively edgy and it started to get bad and people stopped liking it, and now it's cool to like it because it wasn't liked 2 years ago, because it was cool before that, because it wasn't cool before that. And it's like that idea of postmodernism where like there's culture and then people are influenced by that culture and then people are influenced by that thing they were influenced by, and it becomes this like it like eats itself. And
I mean, it started probably with modern art and Andy Warhol and those kinds of guys that are trying to
their first material is the pop culture, right? And then they transform it into something else that adds up to the conversation about the industry or the state of art in the world. It's very meta.
Yeah, she's meta. Yeah, exactly. I start to sound like an idiot. Like I don't know what I'm talking about. But
no,
it's
that's
that
very
thing with
interesting.
with Gen Z and the irony thing. And I think like Kurt Cobain, he got that where you do something like when he has his southern accent in his songs. Is he doing that because he's making fun of like southern rock? Is it because that's what he listened to and that's what he was influenced by, and therefore he thought it was funny that they were doing like? No one ever puts words to those things, but like
that's very
there's a
interesting.
sense of like irony that goes, or even John Lennon. There's a like I always talk about how if he like his whole because I always get into this kind of a controversial thing because like someone at my school tried to cancel me for
Oh, really?
I have to tell this story. So this girl was in a band and they were a punk band and I had a Beatles shirt on. It wasn't even like a John Lennon. It was a Beatles shirt. And it's just the four Beatles. You know, they're mainstream. It's not like a hot take that you like
No.
the Beatles. And she was like, if you want to come to our shows, you have to pick us or the Beatles because John Lennon beat his wife.
What a stupid
And
thing to say.
yeah, well, yeah. And she went further into all this and then tried to say all this stuff on social media. Blah, blah, blah. And it's like, it's not a mainstream thing to like the Beatles. But I, being the person that I am, went way deep into John Lennon. Because the thing is, he did do all those things, but it almost is part of the story and makes it mad. Like the irony of the situation that he devoted his second half of his life to, you know, being with Yoko Ono and trying to. He has so many songs that are like feminist anthems and all that stuff. And, you know, most people just look at he did this and they're like, oh, screw him.
What are you talking about?
John Lennon
he did
beat
this.
his wife.
Oh,
And he
really?
Well, yeah, and he talks about like in a song like, you know, Getting Better.
Uh-huh.
He says, I used to be cruel, I beat her, and it's like that's part of the story, and it's not that you condone that. Well, he was like spent his whole life trying to undo that and to help anyone he could, and you know,
Growth, personal growth.
Exactly.
Leads to artistic growth.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, we got so far away from where we were.
Yeah.
Because right now in the interview you're still 12 and you're starting Velvet Starlings.
So yeah. So I think the Beatles, and then I got into the White Stripes, and who else did I like after that? I just got into bands, and I go to the farmer's market with my friend who is a singer, and we would play like covers.
At the farmer?
Yeah, at the farmer's market.
On
We'd get
Fairfax?
there. No, actually in Northern California. 'Cause I went to
okay.
high school in Northern California. Because it was a school called Inspire School of Arts and Sciences, and they're the only high school that has Pro Tools in California. So I was like, oh, okay.
That's where I'm going.
And yeah, I only went 2 years, but it was worth it because I have like the most basic knowledge of how to run Pro Tools.
But
and,
that allows you to self-producing right now.
Exactly. But we'd go to the farmer's market with acoustic guitar and just sing like Beatles songs or Rolling Stone songs or whatever it is.
When do you start writing your own songs?
Not too long after. And what changed my mind was like, you know, if you do a cover, part of you either tries to make it sound like you, which in your mind feels wrong because it doesn't sound like the original, and then the other side of that is trying to sing and play it like the original, which makes you have that imposter syndrome thing where it's like, why am I trying to sing like Mick Jagger? It's kind of embarrassing. So you do covers long enough and you either feel bad in that way or you feel bad in the other way, that it's not faithful to the original or that it's too faithful to the original. So start writing your own songs, and after that I would play some of my songs at the farmer's market and get a better reaction than I would from the covers. And not because the songs were better than the covers, the covers were the best songs of all time, but just because I think it was more me being me. You're rewarded more for being yourself than you are for trying to be other people. So started playing my own songs and then playing like really small shows in Chico. And
So you start the project, and it's called Velvet Starlings from the start, and you're alone.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Right.
It was me and this girl Samaria who was singing.
Oh, nice.
And it was like a It was a.
Is she the one on the cover of the first release?
No, that's my friend Ronnie. That's someone. She was playing bass after that. Yeah, Samaria. She went on to, cause she was more into like jazz music and stuff like that, and we had common interests and bands that we liked, but it was more of like, hey Christian, listen to this artist. Oh yeah, and I get into that. Or hey Samaria, you should listen to this. And it was like two people who like completely different things being open to listening to what each other like, and then singing each other's favorite songs. Not so much that we both just love the Beatles or love this or that. So it ended after that. But yeah, I mean,
And I've been very impressed by the fact that you started performing very early in the history of Velvet Starlings.
well, yeah, that's the thing is Velvet Starlings has been the only band name I've ever had. There's never been
That's
another thing.
amazing.
And that's the other thing is there never is gonna be. And I've realized that was my father's biggest mistake, was that he was in a band in the 90s called Plasticine, and then, you know, they were like Britpop, and they sounded like Oasis, and, you know, they were signed to Universal, and they got dropped, and then he was like, okay, now the Radiohead thing is happening. I want to sound like Radio, and he played a band called Skylab, and then he was in a band, he just kept changing his name and then getting new people. And that was a mistake because
I mean,
you
maybe
get
chasing the wrong thing.
Well, not just that, but like, I mean, look at King Gizzard. They have acoustic psych and jazz, and then thrash metal albums, and you know, you can do that. You can completely reinvent yourself and have those same people who still like you. But if you have 1,000 people who like your band, and then you become another band, they don't like that new band. They like the old band.
It's hard because at the beginning you have to get through to the people, and with a very bold and easy image that people need to remember quickly. So for King Gizzard, I guess they were masters in delivering a message to us, which was, we're that crazy band, and we're gonna be proteform.
And one thing I do have to say about them, and it goes back to it, you can completely change it. Like, look at the White Album. What genre is that? Talk about progressive music.
Yes.
Progressive pop. That freaking the White Album. I don't even know what to call that thing.
That's right.
King Gizzard
That's
or
right.
like the White Album.
But the White Album comes after a long process.
Yes.
I mean,
but King Gizzard made the argument, what if your first album was the White Album and you continue to just put out White Albums?
That's what they did, I guess. And
Yeah.
that's why they are where they are.
Or their discography is like the White Album.
Yeah.
In that every album is
I love
just
that.
not the next one.
Research.
But there is something to be said about the fabric of King Gizzard, in that I read a thing that in like 2009 or something, they were all 7 of them were at this bar or something, and they saw the OCs, and they came to Australia and played, and there was like no one in the play, it was like empty, but all of them were there, and it individually made each one of them want to like start a friggin' rock band. Because people say, oh yeah, Tame Impala made everyone in Australia want to start a psych rock. I think Stu said that. But in reality, King Gizzard sound like the OCs, and they're 2 big records that, like, because they put out 4 albums on their own on Flightless, and then they put out I'm in Your Mind Fuzz and Quarters, and they put them out on Castleface, which is John Dwyer's record label from the OCs. And part of it, I think John Dwyer's really smart in that, you know, most people, you make a thing, if you're original, you're like, this is my thing, and then people try and copy you, and they're like, you either forget that. But he doesn't do that. He goes, oh, you like what I'm making? Oh,
Be part of the
yeah,
family.
Exactly.
Encourage it.
Yeah, and they're not trying to do that thing where they're like, oh no, we don't know who that is. They're like it. They wear it on their sleeves, and that's the great thing, because that's how all the. I mean, did they do that with grunge? Did they try and say, no, we don't know who Nirvana is? No, it's like that's how you make the next era of rock music. You are influenced by what's happening now that's new, that you like, and if enough people sound like one thing and a scene can happen, and there's enough support for
That's
it.
a big topic on this podcast. Like, Oh my god, how the fuck in the world can a scene happen when everybody's listening to different things on Spotify and
Exactly.
nobody's going to shows
Ex-
anymore because they're on freaking Netflix or HBO, and how does that happen? I guess
The bands
what-
almost have to try and copy each other and make one cohesive thing that people can look at and say, oh, this is the thing.
that's the new movement.
Yeah. And so far, based on my calculated research, like in Los Angeles, there's the, like, you see the bands that are on desert days. Like, that's a clear thing, you know.
Yeah.
King Gizzard and, you know, Tame Impala are pretty famous, and people have gone as far as to mix bands like Mac DeMarco, Tame Impala, and King. Like, the people who listen to those bands listen to Ty
Yeah.
Segall, and they'll listen
Yes.
to the OCs. And that's the thing, is because it's because of the band King Gizzard. I not to knock every other band, but them specifically, they're able to say that you can have fans who love thrash metal and love electronic pop.
I mean, there's a cohesiveness, cohesion. I don't know how you. What's the appropriate word?
They both sound like words to me.
Okay. Well, it's great.
I'd use either of them.
So I think it's that all of these bands are alternatives, and I think that's the real word. Meaning
That
of
would
the
be the
world.
real word, but I think what happened was, you know, there was punk music, and then there was all the, you know, because there was hard rock and soft rock, and hard rock, you know, turned into eventually freaking, you know, what people call cock rock, where it's like hair metal and crazy guitars and makeup and crazy hair. And then grunge happened. They're like, dude, we're not that. We're rock music. We're,
that was a
freaking-
reaction to
we're
it.
not that.
We need more authenticity.
They're
It's
an
a circus.
yeah.
What the fuck is that?
And alternative music's like, we're not that. We're alternative.
We're cool.
Yeah. But then alternative music, there were too many bands that were alternative, in quotation marks, that the term alternative has become like people call
Doesn't mean
Machine Gun
anything.
Kelly alternative.
Oh my fucking
like
gosh!
what?
Don't get me
What?
started
Because the
on him.
alternative became, and then indie was the word that was like, oh, you're alternative. That we don't want to be a part of that. We're indie. But then indie has become freaking bedroom pop,
Yeah.
and like anything is. And even Mac DeMarco, I watched the video I saw is called "Did Mac DeMarco Kill Indie?" And it's from a huge Mac DeMarco fan. You know, he knows all the songs. It's not throwing shade at him. It's just, if you show the whole world that you don't have to dress up or be crazy, you can just be a dude who wears shorts, like cargo shorts, and sings a song, and you don't have good production.
That's his whole image.
Yeah.
You know?
Then you're gonna spawn a whole group of people who aspire to be that, and that has kind of, you know.
Yeah.
a
Well,
lot.
he's the godfather of bedroom pop, I guess.
Yeah. And what he does is great, but the people who follow in his footsteps, I wish more people would see what King Gizzard are doing and be like, man, let's try and be like that.
Yeah.
Let's try and do everything and have bright colors and be extreme and be real. Because for me, there's two reasons to listen to music. I listen to stuff that's either like pop, like good songwriting. You know, and it can be pop. Like I freaking like Bruno Mars or Kanye West. I love that stuff. Or I listen to music because it's, you know, like punk rock and badass, and there's something edgy about it.
Yeah.
But if you aren't doing one of those two things, it's kind of like either you're pissing people off or you're doing something that people like. You have to do one of those two things. But if you're not doing those two things, it's just like this. I think Liam Gallagher calls it beige music. It's like non-threatening. It's not like doing something. It's just
hard.
kind of there. There's
It's
a lot.
hard.
Or he has like Coldplay, you know, like
Yeah.
Coldplay, and they have some really great songs. But imagine if there was like a band that wanted to sound like Coldplay that didn't have the great Coldplay songs. And I think that's what's happened is like, you know, Taylor Swift, she had like 10 huge hits that are mega, like Shake It Off and I Knew You Were Trouble, all those big hits where, you know, like I Knew You Were Trouble has elements of dubstep in it and all sorts of weird stuff, and it, because of the way things went, it was able to get really famous. And then she was like, oh, I want to be indie, and I want to just write songs that are for me and are about my life experiences, and they don't have to have big melodies. They don't need some song like Max Martin writing the hooks. So she put out, I think, the album Folklore, and it won all the Grammys because it's Taylor Swift, not because...
And because all Phoebe Bridgers happened.
It's Phoebe, exactly. And, you know, like that song, I Know the End by Phoebe Bridgers?
Yeah.
I think that's a great song. It's so badass, and it's what sets her apart from all the people making that music. But it gave this, like, thumbs up to all these people, not just in LA, but all over the world. Like, oh, well, that's, you know, music. This is what's famous. This is the number one song in the charts, and they don't get that it's in the charts because of a multitude of reasons. Like, if Phoebe Bridgers didn't have the skeleton outfit on and everyone's mashing, like, she has like a brand, and then she goes and she smashes her guitar, and just that one song is enough for me to go, man, she's amazing.
She's amazing. I've been following her for a while now, since the first record, and I'm a huge Elliott Smith fan.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Basically,
like, there's something, I was listening to her in the car with my dad the other day, and I was like, there's something about the way she sings where she's listened to so much of Elliott Smith that she does these weird, like, these little intricacies of the way that he spoke.
exactly.
And it's like, I get it. But...
And production tricks with
yeah.
the vocals, like doubled and spanned and stuff like that.
But what happens with songs like that where people, like, they fixate on, like, same with Taylor Swift, these songs that are really great and the whole world takes to it, and that's why it gets famous, and then people become fans of the person and the artist and the story, and then they like the other 10 songs on the album that are, let's say, not as good. People think that stuff that's not as good is, like, good, and then they try and aspire to make that, and it inspires a whole generation of people who aren't trying to, you know, make fun music that people want to listen. It's kind of like Adele. I love Adele, and she's got like 10 songs that I listen to all the time. But at an Adele concert, the people who go to that concert, they don't go there to rock out or because the other 15 songs on the set like changed them. They're there to watch those hits, and then the rest of it, they're people who go to stand there, and they're not a part of the music. They're like you can't have and it's the same thing with rap. Like, how many underground rap shows are there?
I don't know. Maybe it's just have to do with the mainstream or being hugely famous. I mean, if you go to a Paul McCartney concert, there's plenty of people that are not really musicians or really passionate about it, but they know all the hits.
Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. It's not anything against people with hits or knowing the hits or anything like that. It's more that if the songs that aren't the hits enter the mainstream, then that's what like people right now, there's so much music out there right now that is being rewarded, that's being talked about by Pitchfork and Stereo Gum, that's nowhere near as interesting as, or maybe it's just my opinion, but I'd say you could say that I'm wrong and it's just my opinion and that this other stuff is really that interesting, but if it was true, way more people would be into it. Like, there's so many bands who are like, they support each other and this and that, and it's like, people should like music because, like with King Gizzard, they go out there themselves and they make it so interesting that you have to listen to it, and that's why their fans buy 20 albums and buy different pressings of them.
So you're just saying that you have to be good.
Yeah, like I hate to say that, but more people are like content with not being good, and then fans of these artists for other reasons say that they like it for the music, and it's a disservice to the artists and all the music community.
I think the harder part of it is to give a whole vision and a clear message to the people who are going to discover you, and when you listen to that band for the first time, you have to go, oh wow, they're themselves, they're good, like musically, and they are showing me a universe. So that's why now music incorporates so much of the visual aspect, I guess, too.
Well, that's the thing, is it's not like everything you're gonna like more the more context you get, and it's now not rewarded to, you know, like there's some albums, like there's this band Car Seat Headrest, and I like them a lot, and they have some really great songs, but the actual songwriting of, you know, some of their B-sides, it's kind of like a regular, like a discount Weezer song, you know, and I think he released like 7 albums before they even got signed and did their other albums, and they're all still up on Spotify, and he just did them in his room. And, you know, that's like because he said he was in the mindset of, I'm gonna, you know, write a song every day, or I'm recording it and I'm putting it out, record it, put it out, and that's really sick. And that's how you get really cool.
That's the craft.
Ideas. Yes, but anyway, what happens is sometimes you'll listen to an album where, and it's happened for me with them, but it happens all the time, where the songs aren't necessarily that good or whatever, or there's some really great songs on the album, and then you listen to the album, you listen to the B-sides, you listen to the least good songs on the album. But sometimes there's a lyric on one of those songs that is not the best song. That's the best lyric on the album. And you get these things where you grow like...
All right, sorry, we ran out of batteries. So I had to stop the conversation for a second. But it was very interesting. And I want to go back to Velvet Starlings.
Yeah.
And talk about your albums. Because it's pretty interesting. You released a first record in 2018 called Love Everything, Love Everyone.
Mm-hmm,
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
And then last year, Technicolor Shakedown.
Mm-hmm.
And you're about to release Pacific Standard Time, which is so your next album, but you recorded it before Technicolor Shakedown.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess this is your Let It Be.
Yeah, well, yeah, there you go. So what's actually extremely interesting, right now I'm in the process of going back and editing, because we have our first EP, which is called Velvet Starlings, our second EP is Love Everything, Love Everyone, and then we have Technicolor Shakedown, which is technically our debut album, but it would be our third album if you're counting the other one, but they're 7-song EPs. So what I'm doing is I'm going back before, right now there's not too many people looking at Velvet Starlings, because I've actually made a point to, like Controlled Chaos, it's kind of like the opposite of that. Like, if you're playing a show that you want everyone to go to, and then you're playing another show that you don't want people to go split between them, you just draw attention to one, and then you kind of keep the other things quiet. I've kind of done that with our old music, and right now I've just got the stems back, and I am in the process of remixing both of them and putting them into one 10-song album. And from this point on, Velvet Starlings is going to follow. It's going to be really uniform. There's going to be an album cover for every album, and there's going to be 10 songs on every album. There's 9 songs and one fake-out song that's going to be the title of every album, and I'm going to stick to that forever.
Oh, you have your formula.
Yes, exactly.
Forever.
Exactly, it's forever.
Let's talk about that in 5 years.
Yeah. I say it now, but so I'm turning we have 2 7-song EPs. We're just throwing 4 of the songs away in the garbage. No one's ever gonna hear them ever again. And
are you gonna remove them from the platform?
Yeah. Oh, they're already removed.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, they're removed off everything. But so are the other songs. But I'm remixing them to sound a bit more edgy. I think that's a thing Velvet Starlings has had. You can't be like too Velvet Starlings, Rainbow, 60s, this and that. I'd rather be an artist on the timeline moving forward than an artist trying to be another artist from the back of the timeline. So, yeah,
You're growing.
You're hearing about it right now, but eventually, hopefully, people don't look back and hear that I changed the history. I want to just act as if, what are you talking about? Yeah, we put out that album, and it sounded that good in 2018 when it came out. But yeah, so I'm making the old album that sounds kind of like Arcade Fire sound a bit more like Technicolor Shakedown.
So you're doing your own remaster already.
Yeah. Yes. And we're just gonna pretend that.
Are you a control freak?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it seems like
I am. Everyone hates me if you're working with me creatively. Even me. I have a hard time.
You annoy yourself.
I annoy myself because I make decisions that I get like, this is it. This is the one. And then 2 months later, I go, why did I do that? It made my life right now so much harder than if I would have not done that thing.
Yeah, but you do it for the sake of the art.
Yes, exactly.
And that's what matters, and that's what it's a hard, thing to do, because you have to be very focused on the result.
Mm-hmm.
And it's easy to let things go, when you make music. Oh, it sounds good. It's okay. I'm all right with it. But then when
I just realized that's what we did with Technicolor Shakedown. I was talking about it a couple days ago with someone, and I didn't know anything about mastering. And I was like, oh, you want all the subs? Subs are cool. I like that high end like distortion. Why does the distortion not sound like it's hitting hard? Oh, I need to EQ it and put all the freaking high end. And it was just I listened to the mixes that I send to myself from Pro Tools that I bounce onto my text messages, onto my Quick Voice. And I was like, wow, this sounds really good. Why does it sound better than the mastered version? And it's because I was just like, all the high end, all the low end, and everything, and it's super hot. And all that does with a mastering engineer is make them go, oh, we can't have that blowing out people's freaking cars. So he takes out all the low end. Oh, that's so piercing. Takes out all the high end, and it just sounds like this neutered mix.
Someone you trust.
Yeah, well, it's not his fault.
It's
my fault. Well, I'm realizing
he's doing the standards of what he should do, you know?
Yeah. So
but
now,
sometimes you have to do what you shouldn't do.
Now I know that what I'm supposed to do is make a kind of not that hardcore mix, so that when the mastering engineer gets it, they're like, oh, this isn't hard enough, and then they bring out the high end and they bring up the low end, and
you have to communicate with the people that are working with you for the mix.
What he said was, there's so many subs in the way I EQ'd it, and I couldn't get back into it, that there was no way to hear the bass if you don't want like the loudest.
So you're mixing yourself, your songs.
I'm mixing myself and not knowing what I'm doing, which is scary.
I guess I came to a point in my artistic life now that I know that I can produce a record, but I'm not gonna mix it. I know how I want to do, or what I want to hear, just to have better communication with a professional who does it. And then when it's properly mixed, the mastering shouldn't be trying to, compensate or cover up or stuff like that.
Yeah.
So when is Pacific Extender time happening?
Ooh, and that's the other thing. So right now, we recorded that. That was our only album that we recorded in a studio with this guy Joel Jerome, who he's really sick. He's done some awesome LA artists like LA Witch, Sloppy Jane, Cherry Glazer.
Nice.
And basically, we are gonna get the mixes back, the stems, and I'm gonna remix all of those songs too. So that's not coming out. It's being slightly delayed for the purposes of mixing and remastering, and it's gonna be here later now.
All right.
And also,
because you've been teasing about it in the press.
What's kind of interesting in addition to that is the next album that comes out after that album is also already finished.
Really?
So, yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
What a productive motherfucker.
And the songs for the two albums after that, the 20 songs for the next two albums after that album that's already done, are not just written, but I've already started recording those songs. So it's like there's a lot that I want to put out, and I think what happens is if you put out 20 song albums, people are just like, that's too much. You know, it's not like if I see an album cover and it's got 20 songs on it, I'm going to listen to whatever the single is and I'm going to ignore the rest of it. But I really like the idea of having 9 songs with a fake out song, because 10 is just a nice, it's the smallest number you can have, while still claiming it's a two digits. So, some of my favorite albums of all time have 8 songs. Like, I don't know if you heard of the band Foxygen.
No.
They have an album called We Are the 21st Century Ambassadors of Peace and Magic. It came out in 2013. And it's one of my favorite albums ever released in the history of music. And I think there's only 9 songs on it. And one of the songs is a 1 minute no vocals song. And it was really big when it came out. And people were like, this is going to be the next. They're another band that was kind of like, they leaned heavily on the tropes of 60s psychedelic rock. But they turned it into a whole other thing where they were like, yeah, we're kind of like comedy rock, and we're making fun of the idea that we are a 60s band, and they, I don't even know what to call them, but they were one of my favorite bands. And every time I bring
they the Steel Panther of the psychedelic
No,
rock?
it's not even that. I think they just said that in an interview. But, oh my god, Steel Panther, that's the best band of all time.
Really?
But,
I have a hard time with them. Because not only they make fun of the genre they've been feeding themselves with, but also they became so much of an actual band that plays that genre of music that you don't know where the parody is now.
Yeah. You just think they got some extreme lyrics.
Yeah.
They're the most extreme. Have you seen their pedals that they sell?
No.
They have pedals, and the settings on them are
Pretty-
weird
oh,
words
oh
that
my
don't
God.
belong on pedals.
I hate them. I don't think they're gonna survive the Me Too movement.
Oh, they did. I don't know how they. Well, you know how they did is you look at the people who are at their shows, and you're like, oh,
Oh yeah.
that's how.
That's how. So now that we talked about your records and your new formula, which I'm excited to
Yes,
hear
we're
about, and all the
sticking to that.
catalog that you're writing and releasing, I'm jealous because it takes me like 2 years to write 10 songs. So.
Well, what you just have to do is you got to be okay with it not sounding good.
Yeah. That's right.
If you're a perfectionist, like King Gizzard, as much as they're perfectionists, they're not, and that's why they're able to be King Gizzard.
It's also great to record in the moment.
Yeah.
And,
Exactly.
and
Oh,
capture something.
I just watched a freaking video on this. I was gonna say band, but a group, Death Grips,
Uh-huh.
and how they like signed on with Epic Records. They had their first record, and it was really big. And then their next record, the label was like, "Oh, we don't want to put this out yet. We want to, have put a big budget behind the marketing. We want to put it out in like 6 months." And they were like, "No." And they checked into this hotel and spent $50,000 or whatever the advance was on the hotel, made the album, and leaked it on the internet.
Oh my gosh.
And it was like
bold.
so crazy.
That,
Anyway,
that might be a label strategy too.
yeah.
If they have a smart manager, that could happen. So, albums, a lot of touring too. You were just in England
Yes.
in June, and you played the Isle of Wight festival. Some craziest things happening for you. You were at Beachlife with Weezer and the Smashing Pumpkins. Oh my God, how was the tour? How do you feel now? Because the band is obviously growing on that level on the tour, and I think for rock and roll artists right now, that's the only way.
Yeah, that's very true. That is the only way, unless you're King Gizzard and you got 20 albums and 4 color variants of every freaking one, and people on Reddit who are nerds trying to get their hands on them. Unless you have that, you're making money in live, and if you're not doing that, you're not making money, period. But yeah, Beachlife was super fun. We got to give Technicolor Shakedown to Brian Bell from Weezer in his trailer.
Yeah.
I don't know that he's heard it, but he had a physical copy in his hand for a second. So that's the only thing that's confirmed. But that was really fun. And then we played in Northern California, and we were like, I don't know what these shows are going to be like. And they were really fun, and people were at them, which was surprising for us, and we were really excited
cool.
about that. And we played at Zebulon in LA right around that time. And then we went to the UK, and UK was super fun. We met so many sick bands.
Let us know, how did that happen? Because I get it that you can play around town in clubs and everything, but how do you put something like a UK tour?
So we have this sort of production company. They're called This Feeling, and they have a record label, This Feeling Records, and they're kind of like the premier tastemakers of the UK who put together like all the bands kind of at our level, but in the UK.
Nice.
And they had a stage at Isle of Wight, and it's not the main stage, obviously, with Muse and stuff like that. But all the bands on the This Feeling scene in that community, they're all playing at Isle of Wight. And if they didn't play this year, they all played last year. And they try and mix up the bands. But we were the first American This Feeling band, and so they put together all the shows in the UK that we played.
So it's your booking agent there, I guess?
Yeah, basically. We hope to be back next year. I'm realizing now with touring, the best thing to do instead of, because last year I was kind of like, we just want to play, set up this show, set up that show, and then because you're doing it last minute and you're just kind of trying to set up shows, things don't always work out well. And this year we're taking more of the approach of, you set your UK tour, you set your US tour, and you don't play anything else. You just put your effort and time and
energy,
exactly. You set up a couple things that are going to be real. Like, I realized that at the end of the UK tour, we bit off a bit more than we could chew, and we had to cancel the last 5 shows because we were all sick throughout the tour,
Oh,
and
fuck.
then when we went to Scotland, 1 in 50 people had COVID, and I was like, we were still singing the shows. I still had my falsetto even while I was sick, and then on the one random day, I woke up and I was like, ugh, why am I, like, I thought I was at the end of getting sick, and I got COVID, and so we canceled the last 5
Fuck.
shows. And what sucks is, you know, we played some shows where it was like, this show sold out, and then we played some shows where there were less people at them. And then we were like, oh, you know, you kind of tell yourself, oh, maybe there weren't going to be people at those. And then we looked at the stories of the shows that went on. It's like, oh, man, that would have been the freaking best show.
So what's the next tour? When is that happening?
Hopefully next year around May, because the Great Escape happens in May. And
It's gonna be a UK tour again.
UK tour. We're definitely doing a UK tour next year. That's the only thing that, and nothing is booked yet or set in stone because it's so far
That's
out.
the plan.
But yeah, the plan is to do one UK tour and try and do some kind of US thing in the summer. Because that's the thing, when you're playing and everyone in your band is in high school or in college, you have the summers.
Yes.
So, and it's the same thing for people who go to shows. Like, who's gonna go to a show if they're in school? Who's gonna go to a show Thanksgiving weekend?
Yeah.
Who's gonna go?
Yeah,
Unless you're a famous artist
Yeah, of
who
course.
already has
you can't
confirmed.
even play on a Sunday.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. All the freaking cool shows in LA that happen, they all happen on freaking Wednesdays and Thursdays because, you know, if you're the Strokes, people are gonna come to your show.
Yeah, they're gonna show up.
You
for
know,
sure.
they spend their years of their lives listening to your songs, and you're only gonna be there one time, so you better make it there.
And how did you end up playing at Beachlife?
One of the bookers, he heard about us, and
Word of
we were
mouth.
super stoked. We were like, Beachlife, freaking, that's Redondo. That's like,
Yeah.
right, you don't gotta go all the way to the other side of the world. I gotta freaking, it's a 3-mile drive. And then, you know, obviously last year, Cage the Elephant and Portugal the Man, there's so many sick bands on it. And then that year was like, dude, Smashing Pumpkins.
Fuck
Oh my
yeah.
God. They played Set Controls The Heart of the Sun by Pink Floyd. Sid Barrett, Pink Floyd. I never got to go into detail about Pink Floyd, but I'm very mixed on Pink Floyd. My
Because you
favorite,
loved Sid Barrett.
yes. My favorite album is The Piper at the Gates of Dawn.
Yeah.
And you know, obviously, you're not gonna knock The Wall or Dark Side of the
No.
Moon. Those are some of the greatest albums ever. But I know I have friends who go, dude, The Endless River, man. That's the all of the Division Bell. The Division Bell. It's like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Umaguma.
Yeah.
Man, you have to
Yeah.
be on drugs for that record.
Yeah.
So what's your situation with labels right now? What's the structure around the band? Because I saw stuff
Well, it's-
released by Lemon Sun Records.
Yeah,
some by
there's
Sound.
sometimes 3, and then there's Kid and Robot.
Kid and Robot's
on
with the vinyl.
There's Golden Robot Records in Australia.
We need to talk about that.
there's a
because
lot of
I had
stuff.
an experience with Golden Robots that wasn't really amazing.
Oh God, that's so funny you say that. That's such a lot of people say that.
No, because we were on for a brief second like Die Laughing Records. You know, they're part of Golden Robots, and they approached us and they wanted to sign us, and we originally said, "Whoa, that's cool." And we had like a very, very small deal, like whatever you put money, we're gonna equal it, so you have more money for advertising your music, right? But that was it. That was just it. They didn't offer.
They didn't even do that for us.
What?
They didn't even do that for us.
Well, that's good. That's good. And then when we wanted to have $50 for a Facebook ad, they said, no, we're not gonna do it. So we're like, okay, can you get us out of this deal because it's not a deal? They were very nice people, but it happened during COVID, and I don't think they had the finances, or at least they didn't want to put it on our band or anything. And then we were like, nope, we're gonna do our thing. And that's how I started the podcast, and that's when we started thinking about the label for ourselves, Nowhere Records, and it's finally happening. And I think from that experience, we are building something else. But anyway, what's the?
I've heard bad people say things, or no, not bad people. I've heard people say bad about. My thing is, it's kind of like, you know, at this day and age, even big indie labels, they're not like, there's no more artist development. There's no more of any of that. They're like, oh, you can bring thousands of people to your show, and you have this many listeners on Spotify. Yeah, we'll throw a couple $1,000s into some ads online and take your rights, or do a licensing deal where we front the cost, we give you some of the vinyl, and that makes sense. Anything beyond that, it just sounds like a pyramid scheme. I don't know why. No one has any reason to invest in any band that isn't already famous, and that's why at the end of the day, like we were talking earlier, I can't totally blame anyone. I mostly blame, I think the real reason, and I hate to put the blame on the people, but the blame is on the people, because people, when they get a band that's freaking super awesome, that should be the next big thing, they don't go and support it like the way they would have in the 80s. Mm-hmm. They're just kind of like, oh yeah,
there was no internet. People had to go to shows to
exactly.
discover it.
Exactly.
People, we can't be nostalgic about an era that's totally different,
Mm-hmm. And that's why you have to be kind of like I feel you don't have to. I am. You got to be a nerd about bands like King Gizzard and stuff like that when they're doing all the right things and all the people come together and there's a whole cult following and they all are obsessed with the lore and the world of the Gizverse and all that stuff.
You know what grabbed me first when I first heard them? The music video.
Mm-hmm.
It was a gigantic, like
the Vulture,
and all the cool stuff, and those guys are crazy.
Yeah,
I'm on it. Yeah.
But yeah, that's the thing, is people don't get nearly as excited about bands in general. Like for me, I think of John Lennon the same way I think of freaking Luke Skywalker and Iron Man. Like they're these
heroes,
larger than life, or even like Kanye West, like a villain who is it's a character study on, he acts crazier than he really is, so that you're like, he says he does all these bad things, and that's why, and it's like, oh yeah. That's it's like when you like an anti-hero in a movie, or they show the nuance of the character. Like, we've lost that. We know now that people are just people, and so we treat them like that, and we don't really care if they're doing anything. And
it's hard, I guess, the social networks, Instagram and everything, that had made people having blogs, like vlogs all the time, and then you reveal so much about yourself because you have to build a direct relationship with the people that there's no more mystery about you.
Yeah,
that's what's missing.
Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, I guess we're talking about Golden Robot, and it's like our deal with them was like, oh yeah, we have the rights for your Australian territory, and we have to pay for touring if you come, knowing that we're probably not going to come. And it's like, yeah, if you guys are posting about us and you don't really get anything, yeah, and the only reason for me was this band called the Dirty Laces, a band called the Clockworks from the UK. These band called San Quentin, a band called The Chase, all these bands that I listen to, that I like from the UK or from Australia or wherever, they were on Golden Robot. And to me, I was like, oh, you guys are, I freaking like them. This is a good place.
A catalog that is.
Exactly, and that's what it was, is I think they just kind of go around saying, hey, we're not going to take anything from you, but we just want to use your name on our roster. And
that's what I felt.
And I was like, yeah, why not? I don't freaking care.
Yeah.
And my mom she's a artist, right? She's an entertainment lawyer.
Oh.
So she is like, Christian, don't do that. Don't sign it. And it's like, because she's always worrying about people are using your music. You're not getting paid for this. And we have arguments all the time. Like, Mom, we're living in a world where people go on YouTube. They rip stuff from Disney movies, put it up, monetize it, and keep all the money from it. And Disney sees it, gets millions of views, and doesn't do anything, and they just look at it as free promotion.
Yeah.
And it's like, if they're doing that...
But you still need to earn your money, because you need to survive as an artist, and it's hard. Of course.
And that's why, at the end of the day, I hate to be so cynical about it and kind of mean, but King Gizzard are making a lot of money, and they didn't do any deal with anyone. They just made stuff that is that good, and people liked it. Like that, the proof is in King Gizzard, and a lot of people kind of wait around going, why are, like, there's people on Spotify, I'm only getting paid this much for Spotify. It's like, Drake deserves, like, who's bringing in the problem is that it used to be the fan of music, like the fan of Nirvana, if they liked all Nirvana songs, they bought 5 CDs. So the person who bought 5 $20 CDs brought in $100 to that record store. So Nirvana were the kings. They had the most great songs. And that's who was rewarded was the person who was the music fan.
Mm-hmm.
Nowadays, with Spotify, you pay $9.99 a month, so the kid who's 6 years old who listens to Hotline Bling by Drake one time is worth the same as the dude who listens to every song by every band, who's always consuming all this stuff, because you don't have to buy all the CDs anymore. You just have to have the whatever it's called. So Lil Nas X is bringing in way more people than the Black Keys.
Yeah.
So he deserves more money than the Black
But
Keys.
the problem is 1 million streams is like $4,000
Yeah.
in revenue for everybody,
Mhm.
including the
Mhm.
label if you have one, distribution and everything. So I think right now our focus should be on how do you get money without thinking about streams, because that's not going to happen. So you have to be smart.
Well,
Either you work the sync, like
Mhm.
plugging your songs into commercials and movies and stuff. That's a great source of revenue, and that's a good way to be recognized around, or touring.
But even
But
sync,
you have to have a strategy.
I don't know if you know, but like with sync, there's so many middlemen. There's all these people where you have the music supervisor, and then you have
Sync agent.
yeah. You have the people here, and then you have people here. So let's say they're getting $50,000.
That's why you need to find a music supervisor.
Yeah, well,
So there's
we've
no-
gotten syncs and stuff, but we've gotten paid $200 and $300 for songs in like TV shows, and like we have.
Oh yeah, that happened for
We
you.
have-
You got
We have a song in a
songs in
KFC commercial. We have a song in what's that show? Riverdale. We had a song.
How did that
in,
happen? Oh, for your mom.
No.
No?
It's just through there's this lady. She's a manager of Not From England, who we
right.
played with yesterday, and she's just like. It goes back to the King Gizzard business model of no managers, no anyone. You just do it yourself, and you own all the rights, and you have full control of everything. I know a lot of people who are managers and people who have helped us a lot, and I'm super thankful to them. And I try and help them in any way I can, give any contact I can, and just help them with business for their artists. But I don't want to sign a deal with them, and I don't want them to be my management. I don't want anyone to. I want to manage me. So it's kind of like it's like a business, and I hate to sound like such an LA person. 'Cause it's like,
Well, I mean, we're diving into things that we normally don't hear about. I
yeah,
like that.
exactly. Someone one day might find this and be like, "Wow, that's interesting." But yeah, it's kind of like instead of people going, "Oh, these are they hold everything," and they keep these like communities where they keep people out, I feel like it should just be open, and everyone should try and help each other for the common goal of, like, we all want, like, if there is a band who is doing well in the scene, who is doing better than everyone, I wouldn't be one of those people like everyone always is, and they're like, oh, they got mainstream and this and blah blah blah. Like, I'd be like, freaking, like when people used to say, oh, Ty Seagal's on freaking doing the talk shows and all, he's in Grand Theft Auto, and it's like their rapper, even Jack White, like, he's the only person representing garage rock in the mainstream. And you guys are going to say, oh, Jack White, you're too cool for Jack White. Like, shut up.
Fuck that.
Yeah,
You're making
exactly.
music for yourself first, so.
When people like that are representing the music that I like, I want to go and do anything I can to say, freaking hell yeah, and support it. At the high level or at the low level. But anyway, back to, we were talking about sync and making money. Yeah. And people with Spotify and getting paid. And at the end of the day, like King Gizzard, are they making tons of money from Spotify? No. But they make, like the people, like when I was talking about the patrons and the Renaissance times, the fans are almost like that. And they're not looking, how can I cheat King Gizzard and listen to their stuff on Spotify? They're like, how can I give you my money? And they have
there's a limited edition.
There's a really special relationship between the fans of King Gizzard and King Gizzard. And it's really cool because normally it's a three-way relationship with the label, and then like the media who talks about it, and then there's the artist, and then there's the fans. And the fans listen to what the media has to say about them, and that could turn them against them. But with a band like King Gizzard, you could have the media saying this is the worst album ever, and it means literally nothing to the fans. They forever, no matter what King Gizzard puts out, I'm gonna listen to every song in that
You're
album.
one of the fans.
Yeah, there's nothing that can be done, and that's what relationship should be. It should be between the band and the artist, and all the stuff in between, like MTV and all that. That should be there to uplift these artists and connect fans with artists, and it's not about that anymore at all. Like there's a business of making money out of artists. Like everyone thinks they're an artist today because technology has kind of caught up, so anyone can go on their iPad and freaking make a song and release it and put it on Spotify.
Worse than that,
yeah.
You can go on YouTube, find a song, like how they call that, a type beat.
Yeah, a beat.
You
like
record your vocals.
Old Town Road.
Oh, it was a type beat?
Oh yeah, Old Town Road. He bought a track on SoundCloud for $50, and it's a Nine Inch Nails song.
That's right.
They took a Nine Inch Nails song. Some dude, he put a hip hop beat over it, put it online. Lil Nas X bought it, and then he put up like memes of SpongeBob or Tom and Jerry with a cowboy hat, and he said, "This is my new song. It's country rap. It's rap music," and it just became the biggest freaking song ever. And the labels were like, "Oh, it's trending on TikTok. Put Billy Ray Cyrus on it." Whoa, now it's even bigger. And I'm sure he sold all the rights to it. And now it's the #1 song ever, I think.
Oh my god!
I think it beat every record.
Good for him. I like Lil Nas X
because exactly.
He's bringing like stuff in the mainstream like that are needed to be discussed.
I think freaking mumble rap sucks, and I think Lil Nas X. I know every song on his new album. I know that stuff partly because it's just on the radio all the time. But and yeah, I still listen to the radio, and that's another thing. You know, you can listen to that stuff, and you don't have to make that stuff. It's just better to know what is out than it is to hide away from it.
Yeah,
it's not what I spend my time like. Am I gonna go buy the Lil Nas X vinyl? No, I'm not. But you know, whatever.
Oh
and then there's also the other thing is that there's so many boundaries and communities where, like, people who listen to, even just in LA, people who go to these 5 venues will never go to those 5 venues, and people are too cool for everything. And I think all the people in the mainstream, that's happening less. Like, I feel like the mainstream music is sounding more like the underground, and the underground music is sounding more like the mainstream. And it's really weird. Everything's fusing together. And it's bad in a sense that there's not really like a compass of what I should listen to. But it's good, I guess, in that, I don't know, it's kind of like you strive for something so that everything can be equal, and then you get the equality and you're like, oh crap. It's better. I see why it was like that. I see why it was like I learned about when I took some college classes when I was in my junior year of high school. I did media studies, and they talk about stereotypes and how, like, it sounds racist or it sounds bad, but stereotypes aren't just used for, like, I don't know, like if I like on my phone, if I say the word Ty Segall right now and I get a targeted ad for Ty Segall, is that a bad thing? I'd rather get an ad for him than for Swiffer Duster. Like, that's a good thing. And stereotyping isn't, it's the word they use in the class, but when you have, genres and, it's like language. You want to have a word associated with whatever it is that you like, and you can group people together. If you can group people together, like it's back to a scene. If there were 20 bands out right now who are all popular, who are all drawing thousands of people at their shows, and they all kind of sounded like each other, the labels would go and invest in that, and it would be bigger, and it would be on a whole other scale, and people in other countries would be listening to it, and that would overtake music. And if it was rock, and there were enough people to support it, it would be happening.
I get what you're saying. And stereotypes are bad when they are labeling people and reducing them as a human being. But stereotypes, and I guess they're not called stereotypes when it's that case, labels also, that are categorizing a genre of music into something that you can recognize. That's just helpful. And doesn't mean you can't cross boundaries,
Yeah.
And research outside of that bubble and be creative. But I get what you mean.
We just need a word for whatever is rock right now.
And it doesn't mean that you're not
people are too obsessed with, people are too into the idea that it's like, oh, I listen to everything. You can't pigeonhole me into one thing. But it's like, I don't want to be in that either. But you need a word like indie or alternative that says, you know, like there was all the freaking Blink 182, all that stuff, and then the Yeah Yeah Yeahs, the Hives, the White Stripes, the Strokes, Interpol, all those bands, they kind of said, you know, we're rock music, but we're not standing next to Linkin Park. We're not you. There needs to be something like that says, you know, we're not Imagine Dragons. Like the word rock covers, it's so broad that it's like if I was an artist with hundreds of thousands of followers and I was just my own thing and I had a ton of people who show up to all my stuff, I'd say, yeah, genres suck. People should just like you for who you are. But if you're not that and you're not part of a community, like, you're screwed. You have no chance.
Yeah.
So
it's hard to stand out.
And that's why to make waves, it's kind of like that's how grunge happened. If you didn't have Sonic Youth and Nirvana and all that, like if there wasn't a scene, if Thurston Moore didn't go to the dude from Sub Pop and say, freaking Nirvana, they exist, go check them out, would we have Pearl Jam and all that other stuff?
No.
They might have just been some dudes freaking playing in Seattle.
So who are the other bands in LA that you associate
what's
with?
kind of scary is it kind of already happened. I was just talking to someone about like they said like the show we played last night, if it would have happened in 2019, there's a whole market for that. And there's all the people who are pushing 30 in the burger record scene and all the, you know, that's everyone liked that like surf rock thing, and they, you know, a lot of those bands got canceled.
Yeah, Burger.
They are gone, and all the fans kind of left. I think like with COVID, because it happened in the middle of COVID. So COVID happened and forced people out of, like people who lived with their parents and this and that. People are like, I can't keep living in LA. Or like it's either people who are rich or people who are trying to be rich, like trying to hold on to living in LA. A lot of people just moved out of California.
Yeah, that's right.
And or to other parts of California that are cheaper, and they just changed their lifestyle. And then once the fans left and the bands left, it was like, what the hell is the scene now? what scene is there? And
what's happening at the Smell, for example?
Yeah.
What's happening there?
There's a lot of really cool bands who play, and they pack it out.
What's the vibe?
Well, the vibe is there's a lot of people, and it's always been like that, where they don't necessarily listen to the bands in their car on their drive, but they, like most of the bands that I know who are like the bands who will play the Echo and headline it on a Friday, they have 3,000 monthly listeners on their Spotify, but those 3,000 people are 3,000 real human beings who like their stuff, and when they put out vinyl next, they'll probably all cop the vinyl, and it's always at a really small scale until, you know, everything's nothing till it's something, and the second that it's something is when people have to go and not copy it, but kind of you need 5 bands that sound kind of in the same vein that and it's happening now. But back to when we were talking about Phoebe Bridgers earlier, like there's this whole thing of these bands, and I don't want to name names, but like, you know, bands like I just saw this band called Dry Cleaning on Jimmy Fallon, and Jimmy Fallon's freaking the number, that's as famous as you get. And it's this post-punk thing, and they call it post-punk. It's like post-punk. And where all these people, they just talk over songs. And you have like this beat where it's and then someone plays the bass and they go no 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 no, and then the guitar goes it's just like whatever. Maybe they'll go no no no, they'll play that too. And then someone, it could be a guy, it could be a girl, it could be anyone, and they talk over a song, and it's like spoken word. And I understand that's called like Tom Waits and stuff like there's this thing for that. But if rock music is supposed to be this thing that's like you think of people like David Bowie, where they're this character, and people are too afraid to be pretentious, and it's being pretentious is a bad thing.
What you described was very pretentious.
well, yeah, but like
ambitious.
Yeah, like a band like Tool, you know, Maynard, I think he calls himself pretentious, I could be wrong about that, and if something happened, I didn't mean that in a bad way.
That's not the guy you want to be in trouble with.
Yeah. But I'd argue that I want to be I want to be pretentious. Like, is David Bowie really a freaking alien? No, he's pretending to. He's playing a character, and that's super sick. When the Beatles wore their multicolored freaking whatever outfits on Sgt. Pepper, or even when they grew out their beards to be freaking super cool and, you know, make a statement that we don't want to be liked for our looks. We just want you to listen to our music. Or I guess that's the opposite of being pretentious. But they're a bad example. But there's a lot of artists who are just out there and they, you know, do weird accents that aren't them, and they just kind of have fun with it, and they do crazy things. And it's not like that. Like the bands that are on Jimmy Fallon, you have Fontaine's DC, and I know everyone loves Fontaine's DC. But what ends up happening is, if the artists that are the number one artists in rock are bands like Dry Cleaning, where they're doing spoken word over one note, it's like you're not gonna have a big blossoming world of people listening to the artist in their car. You know, like, how many people really are listening to that whole album in their car, rocking out and remembering those melodies, if there aren't actual melodies? And it's the same thing with mumble rap, and why it's totally decreased in the last couple of years. If you have something that people kind of like because it was placed there, and people all fall for it, and they say, yeah, we like it collectively, but they don't actually in their heart and soul love it, it just dies. And, you know, and obviously, you know, what ends up happening, it's like self-regulation. It happens, and the next thing comes along. But it's kind of wasting our time. It's wasting our decades of music, and it's kind of happened in the last 3-4 years.
I don't think you should focus on the mainstream. Whatever happens.
No, I mean mainstream of rock. I mean the underground, the stuff that Stereo Gum and Consequence and Pitchfork.
But, you know, they're going to talk about Dry Cleaning for 2 months, and then it's going to be something else, you know.
That's true.
But if you want something really good made by passionate musicians, you should listen to Velvet Starlings. And they have like 80 songs coming out soon. Christian, we're going to stop here because I might be the longest interview I've ever done.
Oh.
And it was amazing. It was really interesting. Thank you for your time. Thank you for coming here at our secret location of Hanging on Sunset. And I wish you the best. I'm a fan, and I can't wait to hear more.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Convince me I've been in for it, so we made our way back onto the floor. Our time is fleeting, so we juggle.